Hey guys, in 2024, we're doing something a little bit different. We want to hear from you on what movie we need to talk about.
Yep. If you guys like movies like us, we're definitely interested in hearing what type of movies or what movies specifically you want to listen to us. And if you want to give us some suggestions, there's the Beacons link available in the description, which then you have Discord, you have YouTube, comments, whatever you want to do, DM us. Just let us know what you want us to talk about, and we're happy to share that with you.
And of course, you can't forget to like, subscribe, give us 5 stars, name your children after us, or whatever it is that you want to do. But make sure you do it so that more people can find us.
Definitely, please support us because we need all the support, and you guys can definitely help us keep going in 2024. Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're here to talk about the 2023 movie Poor Things. And as always, I have here with me Ramon
Hey, guys.
and Raul.
Howdy.
Guys, in life, sometimes you gotta make decisions, and sometimes you gotta stand by those decisions, and sometimes you just gotta, shake your hand and be like, "Why did I do that?" And back in December, I had an option of seeing Poor Things or Aquaman, and let's just say I chose very poorly, man, because I could have seen an amazing movie, but instead I saw one of the worst films of my life. But yes, bro, I am talking about Aquaman too.
I still haven't seen it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, that makes sense. If
Yeah.
anything, Aquaman should have been named Poor Things itself, too. Just kidding.
I want to
That's
live
too
in
easy
a
there.
I want to live in a world where we get 20 movies like this instead of like Aquaman sort of movies, man. It's just, this movie was perfection.
20 is a lot.
Oh my God. It's not going to happen. Don't worry about it, bro.
I know. 20 is a lot of these kinds of movies.
Well, I mean, maybe I'm interested to hear what you're gonna say about it, actually. But Ramon, I kind of know what you're thinking. So, what did
No,
you
you
think?
don't.
What did you think about this movie, man?
No, you don't. I mean, I'll be honest. I really like the movie. I think Raul just mentioned it through some acquaintance or something who said something that this movie was a work of art. I think ultimately that's the best way that you can take this movie. It's a reflection on humanity, on creation, on God, and all this crazy stuff. But most importantly, Emma Stone. Not because of the nudity and all the,
There's
freaking
nudity?
furious jumping that we did, but no, it was a beautiful movie. Like once we get into the core of it, there's just so many beautiful symbolism, the use of color, the use of music. It was definitely a journey. And I can tell you, starting to watch it was very questioning why people like this so much, but I think it definitely has a great payoff as the movie develops. So I think it's really worth it. Sit down, don't turn it off until you're done with it, because I've heard a lot of people turn it off like within like 10 to 15 minutes. So just stand by and then you'll find out. It's great movie.
Well, just like don't judge a book by its cover, I made the mistake of judging this movie by its trailer. And I remember when I saw the trailer, I was like, oh my God, like what is Emma Stone doing in this? Like this is gonna ruin her career. This movie looks
And
so
Mark
weird.
Ruffalo.
And Mark Ruffalo, but the trailer itself just didn't do anything to really like help it promote it. Because man, I know it's not a comedy, but this was one of the funniest movies that I had seen, like in a while. It's freaking. I was laughing left and right on my second rewatch, especially.
Yeah, I will say though, the trailer definitely helped set the right expectations for the movie,
Yeah,
because the trailer was weird, and this is a super weird movie.
yeah. But tell us, bro. I mean, besides it, you thinking it's super weird. What else did you think about this
It
as
was
you were watching
horrible.
it?
I'm kidding. Yeah, I
Did you
honestly,
say
it was
sorry, my headphones cut off. Did you say it was horny or horrible?
I was joking saying it was horrible, but it is also very
Very
horny
horny.
movie. But it definitely is a work of art. I will say no one is under any obligation to like this movie, but it definitely is a movie worth watching, and I think everyone that wants to watch it should watch it, because it there's a lot of great parts to it, and there's a lot of weird parts to it, and then kind of depending on who you are is going to determine on whether it hits for you or if it doesn't, because it's definitely going to be one of those very polarizing movies where people are either going to love it, hate it, or maybe be somewhere in the middle. But it's going to be a lot less people in the middle than the two extremes.
You know,
And I was gonna
no,
say no, and I think that if you did watch it and you find yourself like struggling to understand perhaps more about like what should be the reaction or at least our reactions, I think definitely listening to us, because I feel like we're gonna have a good mix of like impressions of the movie. And I feel like, at least this time around, I didn't look at any other like content creator. I didn't look at any other videos. So for once, because I really wanted to like bring my interpretation of it before I go and try to see what the director meant or anything else, because it was fun. I mean, if you do finish it, you should have like tons of ideas about what the overall theme is, like what symbols stood for what, and I don't know, like at least like you enjoyed it. Hopefully that's the case, right?
no, yeah, I was gonna say, like I mentioned to you guys how like anytime I have to go into my Hulu account, I have to go through Disney Plus to see my Hulu stuff. So it's kind of funny the idea that I saw this movie on technically using Disney Plus, because that's how I have to get to my Hulu. Even when I was like continue to watch, it was like on the Disney Plus screen part of it, so it was just kind of hilarious.
That mouse would disagree, man. The mouse would disagree. Disapprove. I mean, disapprove.
The mouse is just thinking about money at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things I was going to tell you, Ramon, is I just found out, because the same as you, I haven't really, heard anybody else's reviews or anybody's really opinion on this movie, but I did find out today, and this kind of tells me why I did love this movie. I found out that the director of this movie, he's responsible for Killing of a Sacred Deer, which is a movie me and you saw, in a very intimate environment. And also The Lobster, which is really one of my favorite movies that I've ever seen. So I was like, no wonder, this creator is just, I don't know. This is definitely a movie that I wouldn't have been able to tell it was by him, but definitely I'm like, dude, this director is just like has all the right kind of feels when I'm watching his movies. And I'm surprised that Colin Farrell wasn't starting as
in this one,
as Mark Ruffalo's role, or if maybe he was offered, but he couldn't do it.
That would have been too easy. Mark Ruffalo was so much better for the role because of his like fucking ego. His ego was the best. But no, like I just finding out that it was from the same director or same creator as The Lobster. Another weird movie, if you want to call it. I think that's what it is, man. It's just like Raul said, knowing that it's a weird movie to begin with, and then really trying to like take it as like a piece of art, like a film, like an actual, just it's a story that they're telling, and it has some layers. So
no, and it's kind of funny too, because so I saw the movie with somebody else, and they did ask me like what the movie was about, and so I didn't really see any spoilers or anything besides like I saw the trailer, but I had no idea really what the movie was about or anything like that. So all I said was, so it's nominated for a bunch of Oscars. It has Emma Stone, as Mark Ruffalo, and it's really, really weird apparently, and a lot of people really like it. But I think it's supposed to be a comedy. So that was pretty much my explanation of what this movie is.
Did it work? Did she stay the whole time?
Oh, we did not finish the movie.
Oh, okay.
But it was interesting. We had a lot of opinions for we saw like an hour of it and then realized, it's another hour and a half.
I understand why you didn't finish it, so you don't gotta undersell the movie, because I totally understand why. You can ask me to cut this part. I'm about to say next once we're done with the recording. But do you think this will be like your forever Netflix and chill sort of movie?
No, it's so off-putting. It's so off-putting. I am sorry. Okay, so there will be a part of like man or woman. If you're attracted to Emma Stone, you will like the physicality, the sexual content of it at some point. But I think just the leading up to it, knowing what's the origin of like Bella Baxter, should make you cringe so hard when those like initial sex scenes start. And so it's like, no, I can't imagine. Like, I mean, that was my, like, Raul just shared his experience. That was my experience. I started watching it with my wife, a little disinterested at first, looking up, being like, oh, this is weird. Like, oh, what's going on? Like, oh, this is weird. You have which we'll get into like soon, I promise. But then the movie progressed, not interested, and then a little bit of that like sexual tension started, and it was definitely more attention to the screen. But then yes, there was a lot of like, wait, what the hell? Like, isn't this supposed to be like a baby or a kid? And it just, it was awkward. But I think at the end, everything pays off, and then we have beauty. So again, bear with us and bear with the movie, and you'll love it.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know if there is like a good person in this whole movie, because like the men especially, it seems like they were all kind of just taking advantage of, poor Bella.
Well, I mean, if we need to start,
Yeah, we need to
can I
start
tell you
talking
that
about
I
it.
love the way they started the movie because, well, I guess not with Victoria, right? Like who was ultimately the mother, her kind of offing herself off the bridge. That was not great, but it was great to find out that she was pregnant during the whole time. And well, I guess you found that a little later, but sorry. In the beginning, like seeing like Bella Baxter being like a kid, trying to play the piano, playing those like off crazy dumb notes, and then even throwing her feet up there,
On
and
the
then
tricycle, yeah.
and more importantly that it was black and white, right? Because when babies are born, they see black and white, so it's like almost from the beginning, knowing that the gist of it was going to be kind of that. It started me off with a really like nice understanding of it, because where someone like my wife had no clue what was going on, I at least was like, man, I think that she's supposed to be like an animal or a baby. I don't know, but the movie made you feel that from the very beginning because of the inexperience, like the single words that were even like half spoken, like the kid acts, like the bouncing around, the fumbling around, and I don't know. I think that was just a great
The
way
way
to
that you
really get
walk.
you. Yeah, great way to get you intrigued because you really want to know what's going on, and you're definitely saying "what the fuck" to yourself like multiple times in the very beginning.
No, yeah, I also watched this with my wife, and I think she was kind of like find it comical the way Bella in the beginning would act, and then Godfrey kind of like almost let her be however she wanted to be, like express herself, and she kind of made the remark of being like, "That's like you and our daughter, where you just kind of like she runs wild, and you can like she can do no bad in my eyes." uh, but yeah, man, it's just I think God, let's call him God, was freaking like his character, man, was somebody that. I mean, kind of like it was a little heartbreaking the more you kind of find out about what his dad was doing to him. But I also feel like I don't know, man. Again, he must like we don't know all the skeletons in his closet, but man, that guy was up to no good for sure.
Well, just
Talk
because
about daddy issues.
right?
Yeah.
So I mean, a funny thing, right? It's his name is Dr. Godwin, but obviously she calls him God. So I love that right from the beginning you have a clear understanding that to her that's her dad, right? But at the same time, because she calls him God, it also lets you know right away that basically she's like a baby. You're like a baby of humanity, and there's your God, the creator.
The
And I
creator.
love that from the beginning because you're like, wait, you have the most hideous, like, well, obviously not Willem, but the character that he plays, like he's hideous, like he's all patched up, and it's like, man, they couldn't pick the better character to play who Bella thinks is God, because he truly is a monster to the rest of the world, like outside of his house, and she sees him as like, father, the creator. And I mean, at this point she doesn't even quite get that, but to us we already know that he took that role. And it's like right from the beginning that should impress you, because you're like, oh, okay, she's calling him God. It took me a second to figure out his name was Godwill. So, or Goodwin. Godwin.
Yeah, and I from the beginning you kind of start getting an idea of like some of the tones and kind of some of the weirdness that you're gonna see. Especially, I have a question that you guys might know. Is the cinematographer and the director were they nominated for Oscars?
I mean, I know this movie did win, I believe, 4 Oscars. I'm not sure besides the, Emma Stone, the costume designs, and I'm not sure what the other 2 were for.
No,
I can look it
I
up
know
right now.
that they were nominated for 11 Oscars, but I don't know what for. But like off the bat, like I noticed the cinematography, like all the scenes and kind of like the camera work and all the visuals that they did was kind of like it was all strategic and on purpose. And that's part of the artsy part of it, because like with starting with the black and white, and then throughout the movie they change kind of with the colors and the skies and the scenery, and then the camera work and the focus and a bunch of stuff. So I honestly I think that's one of my favorite parts, because of how like drastic changes they had to kind of depict different scenes based off the mood and what perspective you were looking at and all that stuff. So I thought that was like awesome, and including the work with all the colors that they did throughout the movie. I thought that was awesome. Besides acting, which was actually pretty good, but I think Mark Ruffalo kind of takes the bread for me. Besides Emma Stone, obviously.
Yeah, if it wasn't for Robert Downey, I think he would have definitely walked away with an Oscar. And I'm looking at the Oscars right now, man. That they won that night, and it's Emma Stone, Best Actress, Best Production Design, Best Costume Design, and Best Makeup and Hairstyling. So
okay,
when I started watching this movie, within the first 30 minutes, I'm like, there's no way Emma's not gonna win that Oscar. I immediately, I was like, oh my god, this performance is incredible. Because I think the forerunner, the second one that could have won was from that Martin Scorsese movie, and I saw that movie, and honestly, had she won, she would have also deserved that Oscar, the win.
Well, I mean, do you think that's just because you already heard enough things about Poor Things that you already had in your mind that it was a great movie? Because when I first started watching Bella Baxter in the first few scenes, not saying that she was acting badly as a baby or a toddler, but I think it reminded me a little bit of freaking what's his name, Ben Stiller, and freaking when he plays but
Tropic Thunder
and Tropic Thunder. And if you guys have watched that movie, you know what I'm talking about. I forget his name, and not saying that she was like that at all, but I love that at first you could have mistaken it for her.
I mean, they say the word.
Max is what is she, a beautiful R word? And then you're like, that's exactly what she's kind of acting like, until you realize that it's obviously meant to be a baby or a toddler. And I think it just justifies everything, but it's just, I don't know. I think that performance in general, her progression throughout the movie was beautiful, but no, like Raul said,
dude, when she relieved herself and on the floor, and her face expression, her face expression, that's exactly what somebody that would have just relieved themselves, the face they would have made like a child.
She did that a lot, and I loved watching that throughout the movie, especially as you're realizing she's progressively getting older, in her mind, or her mind is progressively getting older. There is a lot of scenes where as she's really expressive with her face, things that she doesn't have to say because she's saying them with her face, and so many times that I just really enjoyed the subtlety in that, because you don't need words for all the parts that she had done.
Well, dude, honestly, I didn't know, there was no guarantee that told me this movie would be great as I started watching it, because I just honestly, other than nominations and Oscar, I didn't really look at any reviews. I really didn't know anything, so that's why it was such a surprise. And I think if I could do my top 10 list of the year for 2023,
would have been up there.
That would have been number one, and it just kind of tells you what maybe a sicko I am, because I like this movie. I like Saltburn, so those are my two favorites. And obviously Godzilla also came out winning that night.
I would agree, Carlos. You put Saltburn on your number one, so that's just a lot about you to say.
But this movie would have surpassed it because it's so weird, and it obviously would have been dude, guys, I would have been talking about this performance.
Oppenheimer was my number one.
Nah. Anyway, let's not go back and talk about trash. I'm kidding. No, yeah.
No, I honestly, a thing I really liked about the movie is the different roles that each person played, because Emma Stone kind of carried the whole movie, and she was kind of your thread line that kind of progressed the story, but Mark Ruffalo, I think above everybody else, he was the big comedic part of it, and kind of deep or whatever. And then you have Max, who played it surprisingly serious, but he worked too, because you felt a lot of him. And then, dude, everybody played their role so well, that it works, because some people played it so much more serious than others, but that all fits into the one movie, which is typically not the case, because some people take it too seriously, some people are too fantastical, and then it typically just doesn't work. But in this movie, it just works because it's just a weird movie.
It's kind of crazy because with Max, it's one of those things where sometimes when you love somebody and they don't really love you back that way, but then 15 years pass and then somehow you're able to connect.
You're safe.
it kind of works because, dude, had Emma stayed with him like right in the beginning, like he would have gone through everything Mark Ruffalo's character went through, because she would have wanted to experiment, she would have done all these things, and it would have driven him nuts. And she sort of became like the devil to like Mark Ruffalo at that, and that's just fucking
But,
hilarious.
but I don't think Max was capable. I mean, that was like kind of the sad part for him, right? That there was like the one scene where she tries to advance herself upon him right away, and he's just like freaks the fuck out because he does it. You know, it's polite society would tell you not to touch the no. And so like you have so many scenes like that where like you get aggravated because like, dude, if you were only just a little bit more aggressive, and this is where like I feel like, you know, the movie wasn't really, well, I mean, maybe it was a little bit about being a woman and the woman experience. But I'm sure like from that perspective, but I'm sure as a man, you also had that perspective at one point, being with someone or trying to see someone that perhaps wasn't as physical as you wanted them to be, does have a lot to do with the relationship, because if it's not there, but even Bella at her mind age was already like, you're too boring.
Dude, imagine like how much experience she got in such a short of time, like in the sexual way. I think it is going to be one of those benefits where now that she does end up with Max, like she can bring so much to the table. And obviously he kind of knows about like about her background, but he said he didn't care. But it's like now, because Emma does understand all these things about like how men, you know, all these like fetishes and all these weird things. It's like, yeah, like, dude, that dude's gonna have a happy life. That dude's gonna pass away with a smile.
And you know, unless he's only into like normal, boring stuff like missionary clock.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Dude,
on Tuesday,
I can't wait to talk about the father giving his sons.
Yeah. Well, we'll get there. We'll see those scenes for later, because that's like at the most peak of that world. No, I mean, I think even with Max, like another thing about like deeper into his character, I really like that he was a man of science, right? So as God keeps referring to them both as man and science, almost like obviously stepping away from the creator and the creation, then you have like the father who has like that dude who's like really close to him, that he's like, I want you for my girl, right? Because it was really awkward in the beginning, because you could tell she was like she wasn't developed well enough. She was still kind of a toddler, and he's like, you want to you want to marry her, and he's like, what? And then even the idea that he even thought that God wanted her for like, you know, sexual stuff, and he's like, no, I could never, because I'm a eunuch. And it's just like, you know, that wasn't the answer I expected. But at the same time, like, you know, all these like men thoughts kind of go through your head, because in reality that's what the movie's trying to like achieve, right? Like you have the not extremes, but just the gender role in this and what society expects them to do. But I like them. I like them as a character, especially next to like God. Like with Will Dafoe's character, I really like that he was well, not just that he was a creator, but I do like that his misery was for sort of entertainment to us. And I every time he told the story, like as fucked up as it was, you kind of laugh, right? Because he always brought it up in a funny way. Like he's like, well, at least your dad didn't freaking brand your nuts. It's like, and you're like, wait a minute, what? Like, what?
Yeah, so, Max's face is always like, oh my God.
Yes, absolutely. But so I think those as a duo did really well for the movie. Like I think, you know, that was like, and even at the end when Will's dying, like you see them both kind of laying on him, and you're like, oh, like Max is like the other weird son that's not going to be the caretaker of Bella, or not caretaker, but ultimately, yes, like the one male figure in her life. And I don't know, it's just a weird or beautiful / weird.
But, you know, I mean, just the fact that Bella can absorb information, it does feel like that by the end of the movie, like she's the one that's going to be like the good surgeon, and like the one in charge.
Oh, she's super smart.
Yeah, she got super smart.
I like that they added that too with the Felicity, because then you realize that not just because you had a baby's brain and an adult human meant that they were all going to develop at the same speed. Because Felicity was dumb.
But yeah, I think I feel bad for that actress, because she's really good in Maid. If you've seen Maid on Netflix, but yeah, she's pretty good in that show. Dude, God was really cool also about her leaving. You know, I do feel that when she's like, I got something to tell you. Like, I plan on running away. And he's like, it's like, you know, you're not supposed to tell him if you're running away. Yeah. It's normally like, you just do it. But it's like, you know, she told him about it. And he was actually like very open to it, which is kind of surprising. Because, you know, he could have been like, no, I'm locking you up in the basement. And like, nah, Max, he was like, she'll be fine.
Max was the one that was more opposed to it. But then again, he was also her fiance.
Yeah.
It's
Did
understandable.
God pretend like he also got knocked out to like
Yeah.
not? Yeah, okay. I was
Well,
like,
well,
Yeah.
well,
Well, I don't know.
both
It
because
was
like
weird.
yes, at first that's your reaction, right? That he faked like he got knocked out, but right away he picked up the wine, and
yeah,
he's like, "Oh, I'm having port for breakfast,"
yeah,
and it's like so right there he also let me know that maybe he was just drunk out of his mind. But the question was, did Max believe it, right? So I don't know if Max kind of felt that way or if he just
yeah. I
assumed that
don't
he was
know.
just drinking. That I don't know. That was pretty funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. I was like, why is it on the ground?
Do you guys what about the religious connotation of it? Like at any point, because right now, and I only ask because I don't think it's just because his name is God, right? I think it's appropriate everywhere. That's the whole point of the movie. But right now, Carlos, where you were just talking about like when Bella wanted to leave and basically God can't stop her, I kept on thinking of just like, and again, not going into biblical stuff, but just like obviously she would be more the Eve type, right? When did
Yeah.
she start getting a little wicked? When she fucking stuck that apple up her between her legs, right?
It was an apple.
It was an apple. It
Holy
was
shit!
the
Oh,
first
it
time
was an
was what
actual apple?
well yeah, well, I mean, like the first time you saw it was like she was laying in bed, but the time you
Yeah.
actually saw that she was doing the act was
Yeah,
with
the
an
fruit
apple.
on the
With
table.
the apple, like she did it with an apple, and then the maid came up to her, and remember, she's like, "Oh, I just figured out how to be happy, like all the
Yeah, she's like,
time."
she touched my hairy
My
business.
hairy business. but anyways, like the scene like Bella trying to leave and God saying that it's okay. It's almost like I thought about like them leaving the garden and being like, all right, do your thing, and then watch out for the forbidden fruit. But it's like it all kind of played some connotation of like that religious like lesson, and to me it was just even funnier because I'm like whether it was meant to just kind of like mock that, it's a good lesson, right? Because that's literally what happened. She was like, peace, I'm gonna go to live a better world, not in paradise. I'm gonna go explore everything else. All the
But
fucked up shit.
yeah,
I have a question that it's jumping a little bit, but were you guys ever wondering like how is she not getting pregnant?
I figured she
Because
couldn't have kids anymore.
Well, because she
yeah,
got
because I was wondering that because like considering the period and what they showed, like it's not like the guys were ever wearing condoms, and she was like
No.
legit like selling herself
I
in
don't
the
think she
brothel.
just couldn't anymore.
I think
Yeah, I could
Godwin.
see that.
Yeah, I think Godwin being smart enough, he probably would have done that ahead of time. Like he had the whole idea like so thought out. Obviously, in him being a scientist the way he was, he seemed like he was really on top of his shit. So I think he just didn't let it be like a factor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because as much as like Bella is kind of innocent and anybody, we clearly saw other people, or actually we didn't see other people take advantage. We just know that they kind of happened because of the stories that she would share back to Mark Ruffalo's character when she would come back from like, oh, I went here and this happened to me. But I never felt like she was like
And
she
the
would.
chess guy.
Yeah, and the chest. I never felt like something was gonna happen to her. Even though she's so naive, I just felt like she was just having an adventure, and sadly, some people did take advantage of her. But I never felt like she was in any danger. So I don't know if that's because she was kind of like living the rich life. So I don't know, but it's just kind of like interesting to know that. I mean, to me, it just felt like again she was always like nobody was ever harming her, and I know that's not kind of the point of this movie, but like nobody really was ever like gonna harm her.
But I think it ultimately like kind of led to that. And I think that's the nice part about the movie, right? Because it's not trying to push it to extreme. It's not like, oh, here's like a baby's brain that we put in a grown ass woman.
Yeah.
Very next day, here she is like in the freaking streets of like I don't know. I'm not even gonna name any cities, but like I'm down Vegas, like down the strip on Vegas. Like, it's like it wasn't going to be that crazy, but I do appreciate the scene when they were like they stopped in Athens because what's his name, Carmichael, the actor, or so when that Harry or whatever, that he wanted to show her like some of the ugly of the world. I love that scene because ultimately that's what I had been waiting for. I was waiting for her to finally see the world for what it was. And to be honest, like he was one of my favorite characters from the movie because him being the cynic, I think it was just like not necessarily just me, but being more of a realist, being a little bit more cynical. It's like the way that I think I personally like to live, where I don't always have the worst thoughts of people in my mind, but I always doubt like that people have the best intentions for others. And he did a great job portraying that to her. And I know we're skipping a whole lot, but I think just because we're already there, like I really like it was she was learning that lesson of like, hey, humanity's not perfect. Like everything you've seen thus far, like everything that Mark Ruffalo has shown you is all an illusion. Like it's all just like, some crazed man and you just everything you had. And then he was basically opening her eyes even more. But yeah, we'll come back to that because I did want to talk about the shit part of quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, to me, in another script of this movie could also have been where she started like murdering people secretly and maybe getting rid of them. Because look, at the beginning, she was so like about like, oh, like kill the frog and like knifing stuff, and it could have been like
no,
that.
only the dead.
Only the dead. Well, not the frog. The frog should
The frog
kill.
was alive, yeah. So I'm just saying, like, in another way, this could have been like something about like, oh, pretty girl brings you to her room and next, she's like experimenting on you. But I mean, it wasn't that. Again, to me, this felt more like if I had to put this in a category, dude, it did feel like almost like a comedy to me. Like I just thought the whole thing was
yeah.
But
really,
it's a
really
comedy.
good.
I think super dark comedy.
Like a dark comedy, yeah.
Yeah. No, and I mean, yeah, like absolutely. Like I guess another thing too, like as the story progresses a little bit more, you see some things in there that like go to show you, like, again, we're not perfect. She's not perfect, right? Even though she is like the mind of a child. Like that scene with the frog was beautiful because that's I don't know, that's a natural instinct for kids to want to just like smash bugs and choke cats and poke dogs' eyes out. And who knows? Okay, never mind. Just kidding, just me. But actually, don't. Yeah, I love my dog, by the way. But no, like I mean, as a little kid too, though, I used to love chasing lizards and like picking up rocks and finding like the worms and then dropping them back on the worms. So it's like there is something to be said about those actions and just kind of the aggression between some of her actions. Like she was clearly just very like what is it called, young in mind, and then she was just acting out all her like impulses like very naturally, which again, beautiful, because that's how we are when we're little. We just don't know what's right, what's wrong, and it's just like touch, grab, break, throw tantrums, like cry, like everything.
If I can back up real quick a little bit to an earlier scene in the movie, when God's telling her how her parents, like in the beginning when he's lying to her, and it's like, hey, your parents, they used to be friend of mine. They traveled to South America and then they died in a mudslide. On my second rewatch, I felt like he was talking about his parents. And I don't know, like obviously we don't get a lot about his dad, other than his dad was kind of like an asshole and maybe an idiot. But I'm like, oh, I wonder if that's possibly what he's kind of like sharing that story about, like, oh, that like my parents traveled to South America and they died in a mudslide, and he's kind of implementing that into the fake story about Bella's parents.
Well, I don't know previous to that, but like his dad was actually the surgery, like the operation room, that was his. So it's like his dad had been like a prestigious doctor. So, but yeah, I don't know about that. I didn't think about that more than I just like how they gave her, like empowered her. Because later in the movie, she said it a couple times, must believe the adventurer in me or something like that about being an adventurer. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll believe whatever you want to believe.
Dude, how she said that. Or when she like comes in and he's like, where have you been? You disappeared. She's like, people can do like, what do you like? I don't know what she said. It's like, people can do that. And then he like, Mark Ruffalo kind of looks at the camera for a second. Like, what? No.
Okay. Now let's backtrack on Mark Ruffalo. I fucking loved him. Like, to begin with, the way that he started, like, right? So obviously he wants to marry her off to like Max, and then he wants this ridiculous contract about how like, whatever it's in it. And here's Mark Ruffalo right away, the freaking lawyer, being like, this woman of like such like what woman of quality is this that you have to find her?
Quite a woman.
Yeah, and it's like right away he's like, where is she? And you could tell he's like a fucking sex addict, because obviously that's the whole point of the story, is that he's like so full of himself, his ego's so big on just the sex alone, and he's clearly like, where is this woman? And I thought it was hilarious because right away his personality, there's no hiding it. Like he wasn't even worried about spelling the fucking contract right.
Attorney,
like, he didn't even care, because he's more infatuated with the idea of who this woman is before he even met her, let alone once he meets her. And then I love the quote where he's like, if it's not too late, I hope you don't fall in love with me. Just like, whoa.
Dude, when he's like saying I gotta go to the bathroom, my bladder runs with my family, and then the guy's like, you might have prostate cancer. I'm like, that sort of got me, because sometimes I feel like I go to the bathroom too often. So I looked at my wife, I'm like, oh my god, do I have prostate cancer? Because oh my god, we just lost Raul. I think that broke us.
You don't have to pause it. Can you get back on here right now?
He went to go check his prostate.
Oh no, Raul! He's like, oh shit, I gotta pee.
Let's just keep going for like 2 minutes, and then
let's see if he bounces
I'll
back.
I'll come back.
Oh, you can hear us.
Okay.
No, yeah, I can hear you guys, but I'll leave and come back. I have no idea what happened. I was laughing.
But I don't. So you laughed so hard you had to pee, and I don't hear the straight band.
Yeah, so go ahead and pause it, and I'll be back.
I'm not pausing it.
We can keep talking. We'll wait for the flush, man. We'll wait for the flush.
So, Ro, tell us about your prostate exam that you did recently.
Well, my daily one.
Your daily one. Whatever you got to tell yourself. You're like, oh, how do I admit that I like it that way?
I'm checking for a hernia in a while though.
Well, it's funny because again, I keep wanting to go to the scene of the dad teaching the boys, but Emma Stone does make that comment about if you want them to finish, you got to either stick a finger up their butts or do a little choking.
Or choking, yeah. Dude,
I've only
so weird.
I've only gotten one of those, by the way, in my life.
No comment.
Anyway, dude, when you guys were teenagers, did you guys ever think about that? Like, hey, maybe I should go to like a hooker to teach me how to be a man.
At what age would I be thinking I need to go to a hooker?
As a teenager.
But this is where my wife looked at me weird when that scene happened, and we're like, she was in disgust, and I'm like, typical, right? And then she's like, what? And I'm like, no, I'm just saying, like, I've seen it in movies before, I've read it in books before. It's not it's maybe an oncoming thing now, but I think back in the day it was just one of those things that like some people just felt the only way you can get your boy to be interested in a woman was to like break them in earlier with such a thing, which is so inappropriate and wrong. So don't not definitely not my beliefs, but it's definitely something that I was very like around, and you saw it in movies and things like that before. So that was my comment. I'm like, yeah, that's not the first time I've seen it, and but it is really weird.
Yeah.
Again, Mark Ruffalo, I love the way that he kind of transformed throughout the movie, right? Because again, just because I left off on that comment where he was like, if it's not too late, I hope you don't fall in love with me. And I love seeing him as, he goes obviously from satisfying her, like showing her a good time, teaching her stuff. And then he fucking kidnaps her, right? Like that was fucked up. That's kind of when I, right away, you're like, okay, this is going to get really bad real quick. And even she knows it. She's not as much of a child. Also, another nice little detail, if you guys didn't catch it, even though they did say it, I love her hair growing because even God mentioned
like
that.
An inch every day? 2 days? Every 2 days?
What's her hair? Or her head?
Her hair.
I thought he said head.
No, her.
I was like,
how come she didn't act like a freaking Martian by the end of the movie?
I don't know. Well, I first, but then I don't know. I forgot about it.
I thought it was an inch every 2 days.
It was something like that. I didn't keep track of the days because in the beginning, all I kept track of is like, oh, her hair's gonna grow fast. But then throughout the movie, you keep seeing the hair go at different lengths, and I think it was like really great way of like telling that. But anyways. Yes, when she had her hair pretty nice and long, she was already kind of fed up with Mark Ruffalo's character. And
I wish I had a hat so I can put on a hat.
Why are you hiding your hair?
No, so that you can be like, that looks good on you. It's like, you like my hat?
Oh, your hat. Yeah, I see. Well, I have no hat either. So, but no, like I don't know. Mark Ruffalo's, I think the way that he was changing and evolving and to become more desperate and more clingy and more knowing to her was hilarious because as she was becoming more intellectual, he was becoming dumber in a sense, and it was just beautiful to watch.
Yeah,
Bella.
But when he would, I think, I don't know when it was, like it was like maybe her second time somebody had done something to her, but like he slammed his head against the bar. I'm like, ow.
Oh yeah.
He was mad.
I don't know, man. It's like that's a proper reaction though, to have like somebody that you kind of don't know it but you love or falling for, and then they come and just tell you like somebody else had their way with them or did something inappropriate. It's like, like what do you do? Like especially with her, you can't really blame her because he knows that he sort of did the same thing people are doing to her. So yeah.
Well, that's the funny part is that he was the womanizer. He's the one with the experience. And then at one point when she surpassed him intellectually and everything, she was like, nope, I don't need you anymore. And he just became more of a baby himself. Like even at the end when he's like, or not at the very, very end, but like once he gets, what's it called? Committed, right? Like he gets committed to the little insane asylum. Like he's making no sense when he's speaking. And then he starts like wanting to like choke Max. Like his initial reaction is like, blah, the woman. It's just like, he did so good in this movie. I don't know. Like I think without him, it just wouldn't have had the same kind
of.
It's
a different movie. Yeah,
it's a different movie. Yeah.
The dancing scene was really good too, man. Like I don't know if that'll gain more in popularity with people like editing it in and putting it somewhere or trying to mimic it. But I thought the dancing scene was really cool. I kind of remember like it was one of those moments like on Wednesday, the Netflix show. Like like that dance was just really cool done. It was well done.
Dude, I would reenact it for you, but I'm not wearing pants, so I can't. I'm kidding. I am. I'm wearing pants.
It's just weird because it's like they're dancing to this kind of offbeat, and the way
Yeah.
she's dancing, you wouldn't think that's like the right way. People would start pointing and laughing, but it's like no, man, it just played out so well in the movie.
So much that couple invited her out dancing on the town, like not in the town. And she's like, "Yeah, I've never done that. Let's go."
Yeah.
The boat. How did you guys like some of the scenes in the boat? Because I think to me,
I
again,
think they were gorgeous,
dude. Yeah,
meeting like, well, again, remember very first scene when it's Victoria who's ready to like throw herself off the bridge. Everything's blue, right? Later on, when like Mark Ruffalo first kidnaps her and she like wakes up, comes out of the chest on the boat, everything's blue again, and everything's blue again. So like to me at that point, I was like, okay, cool. Now we're going back to that very dark state where Victoria, like, you know, the mother, which we haven't even talked about that yet necessarily, but like, you know, it was kind of the state that she was in at this point. Like Bella's also in that state of like kind of feeling trapped, feeling in prison, which later when we find out more about Victoria, we find out that's basically her life and what she was going through. But I really love the scene in the boat, not just because of the colors, but because those two characters, like the old lady and then Harry, like they were, I don't even know. Like, I didn't want to think it was like an angel or a devil. I think, like I said, we had the cynic who was like the ultra realist, right? And then, yeah, she kind of reminded me of an angel because, in a sense, like, and again, not making it biblical, not making it religious, but I'm just talking about like playing like these kind of like good and bad advocates of what reality is really about, and what humanity is about. Like, I love all those interactions with them because at that point too, she was also absorbing the most information. Her words grew by like 3 syllables. Like everything was just like really elongated and really like complex.
and then she was reading.
Yeah, she was reading. She was reading freaking.
hate.
She was reading philosophy, and it's funny because even like Harry is like, you know, like philosophy is for like the people who don't want to like accept reality, and in reality, I'm like, oh, that's kind of very true in a sense. Like we do have to ground ourselves with like ideas of philosophy, otherwise we're just animals. And I don't know, just all that to me was just the most like. I think I was when the more giving her more of the idea of what humanity is more about outside of just like being a child and then being like jaded by the ugly world outside of that.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I recently went like on a brand new like boat, you know, cruise ship, but that boat was fancy, man. Like that boat like was really cool looking. I like on my second rewatch, I was just admiring like every painting, the flooring, everything on it. Like at the time, especially because this movie, you kind of get the idea that it's like around like the 1920s, possibly. Maybe a little bit later, but it's just like, man, I want to be on that boat, man. That boat, freaking glorious for the rich, for sure, for the rich.
I mean, did the air not seem a little polluted or weird? I mean, it was beautiful, right? Because they had like a weird like swirl above the clouds, and I'm like, what kind of dimension are we in? Because again, you said it's like 1920s, but then they had like those cable cars and the freaking balloons that were a little bit more technologically like different.
A cyberpunk.
Yes, we never talked about God's carriage. The fucking carriage.
Oh, the horse. The fake ass horse head. That's like steam power.
I'm sorry. There was the element of the movie too. I like that too. That it wasn't really like based on like a real place or real time in our history. So who knows when this was or where it was or you know.
Oh, dude, I have heard though that like when actual like automobiles were like introduced, that a lot of people thought it was weird that there was no like horses pulling it, so people would put fake horses in front of it.
For real?
Yeah,
that's good. Oh, well, shit,
it was like a real thing that happened like when cars like started to become a thing.
Dude, I you know, not dating myself because I'm not that old, but I experienced once a woman talking to her son on the telephone for the first time, and holy shit, though, like it was like she was freaking out at the idea that she was holding like a telephone and talking to her son who was, you know, probably in another country at the time, and that kind of like it's like one of those core memories that stayed with me. Yeah, because it was like, you know, you think about it, like, you know, I grew up in Mexico in the 90s, and some people that are very poor, like, they didn't have, like, landlines or anything like that. So this
there was one phone, like, in the town.
Yeah,
so you have to go there for calls.
Not for us. We had to go, like, 30 minutes away for phone calls.
Oh, wow.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's kind of crazy when you do experience somebody seeing something that you're used to and being, like, blown away by the technology. So I could see that, like, somebody seeing, like, a carriage being not being by a horse. Like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah,
More
and
about the
then
boat.
my mom's currently in Mexico, and they were complaining that it was taking so long for the Wi-Fi people to go install Wi-Fi.
Life.
But it's a small ass town in the mountains in Jalisco.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's like small town and stuff, man. Crazy,
Yeah.
man. Yeah. I mean, it was also probably like one of those things like the phone when we were growing up was almost not for the rich, but sort of because, especially if you had to make international calls, like it was expensive.
Oh, you cannot.
Gotta get a card or call one of those
Card,
those
a fucking
prepaid
phone
cards.
card.
The prepaid
Yeah.
cards. Yep.
Oh yeah, no, I sold those, so I know exactly.
Did you?
all about it. Yeah, at the currency exchange. Yeah.
Oh yeah, when I was deployed, I used those
To
call home.
It's like, yeah, you get extra minutes and stuff. So sorry, guys. We're just talking about old times here.
Very, very old times.
Dating ourselves,
Like a lot.
Yeah.
Ooh. and the
Yeah.
old country. But but like that boat scene or like that boat thing, like it's crazy kind of how just that one scene progresses, because in the beginning she shows up and she's like, I'm in a boat, and then he's like, yeah, I'm in love with you, blah blah, blah. And then by the end of it, she has that whole like moment where she sees the poor people, and then she goes and she steals all of his money, and then she gives up to those like deckhands to give it to the poor, but it was all of his money,
Yeah.
like all of it. And then by that point he's like done with her.
Yeah.
And by that point he's like destroyed.
He was just mad at her. Clearly, he came right back to her and all that stuff. Well, I think it was funny. Like, yeah, besides the point that, the whole interaction with her trying to see, like, the poor people down there, it was never going to be accessible. Like, that stairway down was broken. But, like, I do love the idea that once they get to Paris, because he gets kicked out because he doesn't have, like, the funds to pay, like, his tab. Like, I don't know. I love, like, he was so broken and so angry about the money, but, like, just to know that he still ultimately loves her the way he does, like, when he comes back later and he's just following her, like, it's just so hilarious. Like, he was such a little freaking man-child like, the whole time, especially when she had that first interaction at the brothel.
Yeah, and I think Bella sort of like she couldn't really decide whether she loved him or not, but I think she did sort of believe in him, and she said that like I thought you were gonna get us out of this like situation we're in, and you're just giving up and
I thought you were gonna rise to the occasion.
Yeah, and had he like things could have been a lot more different for him, but he could have probably had a little bit more fun, continue to have some of that fun he was having, but yeah, man, he just
some more of that vigorous jumping.
Yeah, but she was kind of growing tired of him anyways, and like he was just simply like
he couldn't control her anymore,
and he wasn't. I don't think he was entertaining her enough anymore. Like, he just wasn't doing enough for her. I don't think it was like, well, I mean, yeah, a little bit about control, because that was the whole point, that he was a man and he was going to control her by like seducing her. But I think at the end of the day, like, I don't know, I just really love that played out.
Did anybody ever look up how much like the currency in France, like 30 whatever she was selling for herself, is in like US money?
Raul will right now, or Carlos will.
Carlos did, because I forgot the name of the currency.
Well, it's hard
because
because
it wasn't francs.
It's also like at the time that could have been like, even if it comes out to be like $2 in US, it's like at the time that probably was a lot of money. So I wouldn't be able to tell you whether it was or not. Just Max made a comment and say like, that's not a lot of money. So that made me laugh.
Well, where you could tell that she's definitely a really smart woman is the fact that when she was talking to the brothel owner, she's like, well, yeah, like, do I find someone like him and basically start this over again, end up being attached to him to get money and be taken care of? Or do I just like sleep with one person a day and then have the whole rest of the day to learn? Yeah. And then I'm like, dude, that's so smart. Okay, cool. You do you. Like, whatever you need to do, go for it.
All right. So we are going to become male gigolos.
Except for Mary, and that doesn't work that way.
Explain it to them that way, and then they'll be cool.
Kiara would never take my eclair that way. She'd be like, fuck your eclair. I don't want it. This is your dirty money, your dirty pastry, your dainty cream-filled, chocolate-covered pastry.
But I thought it was hilarious that like probably the best lover she ended up having during the whole time there was the priest.
Oh yeah.
Like, and it's funny,
you have a gift. It's an affliction.
they skipped them one time, right? They show him like him really pounding and all this stuff, like it was so hardcore. Then they skip to some other dude, and then they come back to him. They finish off, and then she tells him that, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? Same guy? Wow, okay, like that's awesome. I don't
But
know. I mean, so I like, how did you guys feel about that whole scene? Because I think it was just like super great to have in the movie, but I think obviously it just really showed you some of the extremes.
yeah, I think before we decided to talk about this movie, I kind of made a joke about like, oh, like Ramon, get ready to see Emma Stone be like railed by a lot of guys, and you made like a face like, dude, what are you talking about? Like that
I
movie,
still
like what are
say,
you?
what are you talking about?
And then even I just said that comment when I was watching this movie. I was like, oh my god, like this is like excessive. Like I even didn't expect that much nudity to be part of this movie.
Hey guys, I just watched the movie straight for educational purposes. Just purposes. That's it. It's not trying to be a little pervy. No, no. I thought it was weird. Like when you told me, because I truly didn't know the movie even had that much of like
Yeah.
sex involved in all this. And clearly in the beginning, I think it wasn't like subtle. Obviously, it wasn't hidden. But I think this it escalated really quickly. Like the beginning when she starts like playing with herself, when then Mark Ruffalo's like in there right away, and then they go into like dumb having sex. I think them having sex was like the harder part for me to watch, because in my mind she was still like in the very
Like a
like
kid,
young, yeah. So that was
Teenager,
like
yeah.
that's what kind of made me not like that part of it in the beginning, because I'm like, well, that's dumb. But as the sex with Mark Ruffalo got tiresome, when she didn't need it as much anymore, or she didn't need him anymore, that to me right away was like kind of redeemed it, and I was like, oh, okay, so it is more about like what pleasuring yourself with sex, with like these like fixations and things like mean to you as a person.
Yeah.
And then when she started working at the brothel, to me it was more about like that independence, because so far it's been nothing but men trying to control her and men telling her what to do. And then I think for once, and I think the most, she had full control, because even though like she was getting paid for this act, she was in control, right? She did it if she wanted to. She chose to do the job, and then within every single occasion, ultimately she had the power to like stop it, because you could tell that
the power.
But it was,
wow, that's some
it,
power. Yes,
it was funny when she was trying to like kind of change the rules. Like, why don't we let the woman decide?
yeah, see?
And then she like takes her to the side. That was
Yeah.
pretty funny.
I mean, to my surprise is that her and that one girl like ended up having like a thing too, because
they stayed together at the end. So
well, yeah, but to me it was like not a surprise. It was just like you see her face during the act because you didn't know who was doing it to her, and you're like, wow, okay, this changed entirely. As to every other scene that we've been watching, she was repulsed or uninterested or just not part of it, and then all of a sudden she was actually going through like a whole lot of pleasure, and then you find out it was her like coworker. So I was like, okay,
yeah, I mean that's how I took it. That in the end, it was like she was gonna marry Max, and they were gonna have a thing. But obviously, I think that also became like part of like, okay, you have to understand that
It was a throuple.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was. Yeah, I mean, and I mean, she sort of gets bored of things. So who's to say that at some point she just wouldn't be like, "Hey, this is just not for me." Like,
well, see,
Let's bring in another two people.
No, but before I forget, like to that comment, I think what's ultimately going to satisfy her is that she's becoming a woman of science. And I think that kind of to me was equating the fact that no longer does she need sex anymore. Like she's gotten her fixation. She knows Max is truly never going to give her like the same amount of pleasure that she's felt, like because she's had a range of fucking pleasure. That I think at that point she kind of finally accepted that she was silly going to be there for the science and then the love of Max, but it wasn't sexual necessarily, which sucks for him. And I'm sure they would do stuff, but it's never going to be the same for her. What about the guy that looked like freaking what's his name, Golem?
No, dude, we need to talk about this. Is the third time I'm bringing it up.
Crawling around.
No, the dad that came in with his two kids. And
how was that not the weirdest thing for me? That was not that well.
How is that not the weirdest? I'm like trying to think. Like I'm like, okay, let's say it wasn't the dad, it was the uncle. It would still be kind of like
it would
weird.
Be weird.
And I don't know if maybe there's like something like fathers did try to do, because I mean I've heard of like fathers like getting like a prostitute to like like lose their son's virginity or teach him the ways, but like this was like on another level.
Let me show you, kids. This is the way.
This is the way.
Spoken from Daddy Pascal to you. This is the way.
Oh my god, yeah.
But no, I mean, I don't know. To me, was that I don't think that was the weirdest one. That little golem guy was the weirdest, because like even the way that she was posed, where she was kind of like head hanging down, she was kind of upside down. Like what was their communication before that scene? What
was
was
the role play? Yeah.
what was
Yeah.
expected of her? What was gonna happen? Like I was so into that one. Like I wanted to know how that was gonna end, and I never got it, so I'm sad. And
But there was that guy that
great.
was also just like humping her leg, and I'm like, man, people
Oh.
think they're like fetishes.
Because
Yeah.
he tied her, he had her all tied up, but literally was just humping her, and I'm like,
Her
okay,
leg.
Her leg. Not
I'm
even
like,
just humping
I
her,
guess-
humping
I
her
guess-
leg. Yeah.
I guess he took some notes from my dog, but okay. Like,
Which is funny because
No.
they have a girl.
I mean, she does the same damn thing, you know. It's how she shows she loves you, man. Some people, that's all they need. No, but I mean, but yeah, like I mentioned, I think that not to be like kind of disregarded in anything else. I think it was like a very much a point in the movie where she had developed the most, because another very beautiful detail that I love is once she started doing her thing at the brothel, she switched over to wearing black, and I don't know if you guys noticed that. She started wearing black right after that, and that was like her outfit for like almost the whole movie until she like saw like Victoria's old husband. But like until that moment, she was always wearing black. And so to me, that was kind of the death of like her innocence. Not because of the guys at the brothel, but because she finally realized that the world is not like as pretty and as naive. Like she wasn't as naive anymore.
Well, wasn't she also going to these like women empowering meetings?
Socialist.
Yeah, and then she'd like to go to people, watch other people like do surgeries and stuff. Like that was like her hobby, or like how she would find like peace. Like it's like, oh, this is a kind of environment that really makes me like feel like peaceful.
For sure. Yeah, no, for sure. Like, yeah, like the death of that old life and then kind of a new rebirth of her new interests. Like, I did love that.
Yeah. I want to say like probably, you know, when she does meet with her original husband, probably that was like my least favorite part of the movie.
Really?
Because not because it was like boring or anything, but I also felt like I didn't need it. I didn't need to know about like her past or why she jumped off the bridge. And then when it was presented, I'm just like, and I hope this movie doesn't end on like on a negative note, which it doesn't. So like I'm really thankful that even though I didn't find it as interesting to find out that her original husband was just an asshole, it didn't end up with her like, you know, being locked away again. Like we never saw her again. It ended up with like, oh, actually her taking control and doing what he did at the end, where she switched his brain with that of a goat.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I could kind of agree with you, but if you remember too what like God had said about like the body, right? Like the body of her mom, was the whole idea that like he had the opportunity to bring her back to life, but he chose not to. Because how fucked up would it be if this woman goes to like jump off a bridge expecting to end her life, and then all of a sudden she wakes up? So whatever she was trying to run away from, whatever she was trying to like, you know, escape, all of a sudden someone said, nope, you're staying here a little longer. Like that to me was such a like powerful like comment that he made. And to me, in the back of my head, I was like, you know what? I do need to see what this woman was going through. And not necessarily like I need, like it was like, I guess you could have left it out and it would have been okay. But I think if it wasn't for that comment, I wouldn't have cared as much. I think by the time they got to her husband, like, yeah, the guy was a dick. Like it was a nice surprise too to see that it was such an extreme world that she was living in. Yeah. But I love some of the details that happened within his scenes. Like in his house, the floor looked like it was covered in blood. The mirrors looked like they were covered in blood. Everything was like this like black/red color. And to me, it was just like I guess the most violent part of her life thus far was her seeing what her mom lived through. And in a weird state, like the more you found out that, you know, he was trying to paint her off as Victoria being just as fucked up. But it just sounded like she just really felt like a prisoner, and she probably didn't care for any of that shit. Like, I don't know, man.
It's not really her mom, though, right? Because it's like he even says it's like you're not,
it's her.
You know, you're not. It's like her unique. She's like unique, whatever she truly is. Okay.
Well, yeah, of course, because that's another thing too. In reality, it's not her mom, but technically, it is her mom. Like her gave birth to the brain.
But
I don't know. Like with him, I think the only thing with him outside of like those like details was just also the fact that she finally got to see that perhaps she could have been better than her mother. But again, she had no attachment to a mother previous. But I think that she chose to kind of like fuck him up at the end was like a nice little touch.
I just didn't like that she kind of like that she left him right when she was about to marry Max, and then you know God takes all these drugs, including cocaine, I think, to like get to the altar.
Heroin and something else.
So some acetaminophen or
like heroin for something else for something, and cocaine just because I have a
a liking,
preference or something for it.
like I have a liking to cocaine, and he's like, yeah. I'm like, I told you he was super funny the whole time, but it was so dark and twisted. But
she did get to say goodbye to him, right? Like when she ran away, like she finally did see. Okay, great.
Yeah, she made it back, and you know what? Especially after seeing that she was gonna do something with what's his name, with Victoria's husband, right? Like he put him into the goat. Or put the goat's brain into his body. I almost thought she was gonna do that with like Willem, right? Like I thought she was gonna do the same thing with God.
Same thing. Yeah, I was expecting that too.
Because it played right back to back. But then I thought it was even better that she didn't, because this is God, right? And truly he passes on differently. I don't know. I really like that detail too. That
other Bella girl they created when they were lonely and missing her, did she ever become smarter or not? I felt like she just okay. I'm like, I felt like she just kind of stayed dumb.
No, I mean,
dumb, but like not as dumb.
She was progressing a little bit more, because remember in the last scene in the garden, she caught the football finally, and that was like the big like achievement that they had done. So that's what I'm telling you. Like Bella, outside of like being that experiment, like this is what, remember, like scientists, right? If you really want to find out the conclusions of these things, like you need something that's controlled, something that's not, and whether they both kind of got fucked up. Felicity was the control specimen at this point. So like Felicity was always there, but she never developed as quick as Bella. So Bella, regardless whether it was through experience or just her like mind alone, like she was like more talented or just more developed quicker because that was her. So that also shows like that she was just a powerful, strong individual to begin with.
You know, I've always seen this since back in my days when I used to watch Pet Detective 2. Can you chloroform somebody and knock them out, sort of like Rose demonstrating?
Not that quick. Not that quick.
With chloroform? Like with the wine?
With
like putting it on somebody's like handkerchief, and like, is that a thing, man? Like, can somebody just like handkerchief me and knock me out?
My nurse of a wife,
it's not slow.
No, my nurse of a wife said that it's not that quick. Okay. That's it. But I don't know how long it takes. All right, you do that. I'm gonna do my research right now. I'm kidding.
No, yeah. But yes. Like, it happened twice in the movie, and I'm like, man, I wonder how chloroform really works.
Well, crazy when she actually sprayed them on his face, because then ultimately, outside of the fact that he shot himself, then he couldn't walk. Then immediately he kind of started like getting like a little,
I don't believe she would have left that mansion because even if she wanted to save his life, because that's kind of what she made it seem like. Like there was a doctor at the time in that house or her mansion.
No, but they all hated him. Remember, they were gonna revolt against him.
Oh, they did. They were.
Yeah, like he said, like when he pulled up.
That's the reason he always had the gun.
Oh,
he as they were pulling up to the mansion, to the estate, he's like, we gotta watch out for these like service people, like they're revolting against me, or they're conspiring against me. Yeah. And then that's why like the butler, that's why the valet, the butlers were like smoking, the other bit like she doesn't care, like they all hated him and through association. But that's why he had the gun. Yeah. See, like that was fun. That was fun.
Yeah, then I believe it. Yeah, like when the butler tried to take away his food, it's like pulled the gun. I'm like, this psychopath.
And the soup thing.
What about the soup thing?
With the server lady?
Oh, he was so fucked up.
Yeah, the maid. It's like, what's her name? Whatever her name is. Bring the soup, and then she's carrying the soup, and then he like sicks the dog at her to scare her, and she spills the soup all over herself.
Hey man, the rich need to entertain themselves also.
Well, I mean, that guy
like
was
Mr. and Mrs. Smith and the museum thing in the auction.
Oh yeah. But I hated. I mean, and another thing why possibly he could have been like a good addition to the movie is that he was like the extreme. He was more like not necessarily government, because obviously he represented more of his military and his like own achievements, but yeah, he was the extreme of like, I'm gonna control you, your property, your territory, like and speaking about like women, that was like really, really fucked up. So altogether, you just wanted to make him a goat.
She was curious. I mean, she shows up, he sees his like military uniform possibly when he showed up, and like he's kind of like a good looking guy, so I guess curiosity would have gotten to me too, like, okay, why did I leave this guy if what's wrong with him? So I guess that's what it was. Like,
and she was almost the cat.
What do you mean?
Because curiosity kills the cat. So she was almost killed.
Love you,
Hopefully.
yeah.
But yeah, and then they all end up happily ever after, except for God, because God is gone.
No, man. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, another thing is just because I keep mentioning God, like the whole thing about was nice about hearing about his dad being so fucked up to him was this dad, like here it is, like this dude who got freaking abused and all kinds of like really weirdly like damage for science, just ended up being this like creator of this beautiful thing, and then because of that, like now she wants to be a scientist too, and then I don't know, I'm just kind of curious to see how this cycle, because now it's like, what if God was a woman? And that's what Bella Baxter is. She's gonna be like the new creator. Like,
dude, you're making me mad.
God was one of us.
I wish I would have brought like a bubble maker so I could bust out a bubble.
Oh, that's so weird.
I'm like, I messed up, man. Missed opportunity.
No, I'm kidding. That's gross. Spit bubbles. Yeah. That's a very kid thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, my final thoughts on this movie is that trailers didn't sell it for me. I thought it was gonna be like, how many people have tried to do the whole Frankenstein movie setup and it never works. I've never seen truly a great Frankenstein movie. This wasn't really a Frankenstein movie now that you see it, but like you kind of do get those kind of like thing in the beginning, or that's your expectation, and man, this movie just blew me away. I don't think in 10 years when we look back at it like, oh, did she deserve that Oscar? I don't think nobody's ever going to contest that. And I'm super happy that she got that second, nomination. And I think she deserved it, man. It was a great movie. And I think in my lifetime, I will see this movie many more times for sure.
Yeah. And to me, it was just like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I had so many symbolic things to it that reminded me of like me and my work of art and like animals and body parts and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, I think the whole thing was like a beautiful creation. I think that was the whole point of the movie, that it was like more artsy, more of an art piece. It was definitely like sit there and kind of like watch the whole thing before you make your final decision on it. But I think just like artwork is definitely still on the eye of the beholder, so you do have to be like, shit, did I really like all this that happened, or did I care for it, or maybe you just misunderstood it at any point and then you need a second rewatch. But I think altogether it just offered so many great things, and I don't know, like it's definitely one that I will watch again randomly, like probably within this next year, because it's really easy to put on. I think the noises, the colors, like everything about it, and not the whole Emma Stone doing what she was doing, but just even hearing Emma Stone going from speaking like half spoken like words to like being so intellectual and complex in the way that she spoke. Oh, it was just beautiful. Like I just love that whole transition. So just listening to her alone was like the ride for me. Make me a soundtrack of the music and the words.
Any final thoughts for you, Ro?
It's funny. Emma Stone's American, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think this is like one of the very few instances where an American is making a good British accent. Because I know that they always talk smack that Americans are always bad at doing British accents, but then you have British actors doing like a great American accent. So at least we have one now.
Damn, I didn't even notice if she was in an accent, because again, I always kind of
was like
British.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that one lady made sure to tell everybody she was from like London when she was selling her.
Oh
yeah. No, man. I mean, again, great movie. I do want to say before we get going, we got a request from somebody named Oren, and she requested that we do a review of either she or he, a request of either Inception or Catch Me If You Can. I'm hoping that she comes through and tells us which of those two to do, because I don't know together.
Is it a she or
he?
Her or him? But we are also doing beforehand a review of the end of Evangelion, and I guarantee that's gonna destroy me. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, Ro, we just watch a 20-minute video on the recap before we start the recording. All right. That's it. Ro was saying yes.
Bye. No kidding.
Bye.
Thank you for listening.
Farewell.